Everyone, Mark from Haunted Auckland and Paranormal New Zealand here. For today's chat, I think it's episode 6. Today's episode, we're going to be talking to a mate of mine, Justin Brown from Ohio in the States. He's a paranormal researcher, photographer, filmmaker, podcaster, man of many talents, and he's also the founder and lead investigator for Interface Death. So, we're going to have a bit of a chat with Justin and find out a bit about what makes him tick. There you are. Hey, man.
Yep.
Awesome.
What's going on?
Good to see you.
Yeah. It was my birthday today.
Oh, really? Happy birthday.
Thank you. I just been chilling at the house, eating grilled steaks, and hanging with the family.
You in lockdown over there?
Oh yeah.
Sucks, eh?
Yeah. They got it pretty good in lockdown over here.
Now, I've been checking out your videos for a while now and really enjoying them. Very well made, and I'm loving your investigations. It's nice to see a fellow paranormalist that actually takes his work seriously, which is nice and refreshing. Can you tell us a little bit about Justin Brown, how you got into it, and how it led up to Interface Death now?
Well, to be honest, there's no real easy way I can honestly do justice to why I do what I do. It all starts with my mom. She is a very unique individual. She senses things, sees things, feels things, knows things that she shouldn't. And, it's of the metaphysical, psychic, medium variety. And she brought me up on her stories of her experiences throughout her life. And well before I would experience anything on my own, I always thought that my mom was a bit different. Yeah, probably crazy. So when we moved into a house in a town called Hillsborough, Ohio, which is a town I live near right now, my mom and dad bought it from a local firefighter, and it was a completely normal house, nothing going on. The person who sold it to us actually committed suicide a year later after he found out, I think, his wife was cheating on him. I don't know for sure because I didn't investigate it, obviously, so that's what I heard. And strangely enough, after that, we started hearing things and experiencing what you would normally see in a haunting, like footsteps going up the stairs, feeling strange things, feeling like you're being watched or someone's, there's a presence in the room that you cannot see. And my mom, having the ability she has, would tell my father that the footsteps going up and down the stairs is not me and my brother sneaking out of bed at night. It's actually this man who sold us the house who died. And of course, he didn't believe any of it. He ran upstairs one night to try to catch us doing it. And of course, we're sound asleep in our bed. So he was, scratching his head over that. So if you fast forward through all that, things like that would happen every once in a while. It wasn't like what you see on TV, obviously. If you fast forward to about 2003, 2002, I had my first son, and it was just me and him in the same house upstairs where there was 2 bedrooms, and it was just me and him there. And he just started to talk. He, was saying words and stuff, but then the sentences started to come. So you started to have a conversation, if you will, with him. And he started to talk about a man named John. So I first assumed that he was talking about my father, his grandfather, which is named John. And I asked him, if that's who he was talking about. And he said, no, John R., he's dead. So it so happens that the firefighter's name is John R.
Right.
And the fact that we have never spoken his name probably in 8 years before he was even born freaked me to hell out, to be honest. And that was like a point of no return. I couldn't go back to is ghost real? Is this, all the stuff my mom was telling me, and the stuff that the bumps in the night and the footsteps and the weird feelings, all that came crashing into a singularity of 100% pure belief in what was going on at that point. So then I would start, once your brain gets there, it's easier for you to experience what your brain is trying to resist for some people, in my opinion. I lived at another house that was insanely haunted, the most highly active with poltergeists that I could possibly describe to you. Every single day, TV's going off, things getting thrown across the room, things keeping me up, wouldn't let me sleep all night. It's when you're a paranormal investigator, you're trying your best to find these places. But before I go on with my story, let me tell your listeners the one thing that I've learned in my years of dealing with this. The paranormal finds you. You do not find the paranormal. Okay?
That's right.
And those are words to live by. So the reason I started in 2013, my dad's heart exploded when he was 54 in 2011. And I thought I had my spirituality in check. I thought I was prepared for that type of event, and I wasn't. So his father and his mother died 3 months before he did. So I had to deal with all of that death in the family, boom, 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 like that. And I started to freak out because I didn't feel like I was ready for that to happen to me. I had children. I was married. I felt like, oh my God, what if I die and they have to deal with it? So I started soul searching. I started facing my own mortality in that way. And I started watching the ghost shows more and more, starting to get interested in how to research this sort of thing. So I'm like, hey, if these guys can do it, anybody can, right? So I sought out a local team, hung with them for maybe 6 months, and like, okay, I think I can start my own team. I have my own vision. I have my own goals. So I started to, in 2013, I started what is called Interface Death Paranormal Research. And that's the quickest way I can explain that.
Okay. And where did you come up with the name from?
Well, before I started the paranormal group, right after my dad died, I've been into music. I was in bands. I did sound engineering, and I was a sound tech for a lot of local bands. And I was just a tech nerd that was nice to have around because I would run around and do everything for everybody. So I wanted to start my own metal band, death metal band. And I had a buddy that I had lived next to that he was into the same music I was. So I was wanting to start a heavy metal project, and I was still dealing with the death of my father, and I thought the raddest metal band name I could come up with is Interface Death, which is kind of meaning like how to connect with the other side. So that didn't happen, the whole band thing. We couldn't find a drummer, and it just didn't happen. So when I started to get into the paranormal research stuff and I started my own team, I didn't want to abandon the name because that concept was still fresh in my mind at that point. So I just took the name and gave it to the team name.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I thought that would make a mean heavy metal name. It just sounds like a cool band name. It does.
Well, that's what it was.
Yeah, nice. Oh, that's cool. Very cool. Now, I was recently watching your Haunting at Sanford School film. Very good, very intriguing. It had me hooked from beginning to end. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Is that one of your better investigations?
That was actually the last episode of our season 6 YouTube series. We had 5 episodes to that, so there's 4 before that. We actually had a lot of technical difficulties. As you saw, our batteries were getting drained. The cameras would turn on and off. We had audio issues the whole night. It was a mess. It actually took a while to get that film finished. The location itself is very unique and very strange. It's a school turned into a community center with a paranormal museum stuck in it with all kinds of crazy artifacts.
Oh, about the archive of the afterlife. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know if it was one of my, you would call it my better ones, but it was definitely noteworthy as far as personal experience, as far as having a whole 12-pack of lithium-ion batteries drain instantaneously. People were getting touched. Weird. It was just overall weird.
Mm-hmm. No, it was great. And where is that school situated? Where is it? Is that in?
It's in Moundsville, West Virginia.
Right.
It's if some of your listeners might be familiar with Moundsville Penitentiary or West Virginia State Penitentiary, which has been on television for years, and the museums there, the schools there, the Bel Air House. Some may refer to it probably one of the most haunted homes in America, in Northern America. America. So that is right across the river from there. And they believe there's a ley line that goes through there if you're a believer in that. And there's a big mound, one of the oldest Native American burial mounds right there in the middle of the town that they built around this thing. So it's got an interesting recipe for potential, disturbed burial ground type of things that occur there.
That was quite an interesting one. Yeah, I learned actually quite a bit. But with every team I meet and talk to, I sort of learn new things, which is what it's all about, I guess, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
One question I always ask new teams, just to sort of gauge opinions and things, is equipment. What do you feel is the most overrated piece of equipment out there on the market today or being used by paranormal teams?
Overrated would definitely have to be like Spirit Box, the Spirit Box, the apps, that type of thing. The things that's supposed to be telephones to the dead.
Yeah, totally agree.
I would probably say that those type of, as you can see, I did research the Spirit Box for years to see if there's any validity to it, and the main problem is you just don't know what you're getting. The mind, pareidolia, a lot of people are going to hear what they want to hear, all that stuff. And I think it breeds the television shows kind of set things up like that, because real paranormal research is like fishing, maybe even worse. So no one wants to watch some bloke out on the side of a pond for 5 hours and doesn't even get a bite, So you have to develop ways for constant stimuli or constant activity to occur. So you can get that from the apps and the ghost boxes and stuff, the REM pods. If you're in a area where there's a lot of radio traffic or a lot of electromagnetic interference, those things will go off a lot.
And what would you say is your most favorite piece?
My favorite piece of equipment would probably be
so far?
It would probably be audio recorders, like professional grade audio recorders. We use a setup called an RVPR, which is a 4-channel PCM recorder. We usually use Zoom or Tascam, and we plug multiple mics into it. And we hook up a MagCheck 95, which is a scientifically calibrated EMF sensor. And it's got a very low frequency range, so it doesn't pick up a lot of stuff above 3,000 hertz. And we use that to test the hypothesis that E.V.P is associated with a magnetic field that manipulates the transducers. So you have to ask a question: how is E.V.P not audible to the human ear, but audible when you play it back? And the only way to answer those questions is that, well, maybe there's some type of manipulation with the microphone itself. So the easiest way to manipulate the microphones and recorders, going along with the other theories in the paranormal, which ghosts and spirits are associated with magnetic field spikes, that was our best candidate to start off with. So for the last 3 or 4 years, we've been testing this hypothesis with the MagCheck 95 and the RVPR setup that you can see on our website. That's probably yielded the best results so far. We still haven't been able to correlate EMF with EVP, and I think it's because most voice phenomena is acoustic in nature, but the reason we don't hear it is because it's so small amount of energy, acoustic energy, and our ears aren't as sensitive as those nice microphones that we use. So what we do is we put cameras on all of our investigators showing their face. We got, you see all this rig set up that we go through. So we make sure we mic everybody. So we hear something come across. We got to make sure that not one of us said that or created the voice to come across the recording. So that's the best thing I can tell you that we've had as far as getting something anomalous.
Right. Good answer. That's what I wanted to hear. People that actually take the research seriously and actually do the investigation work, using their equipment properly, the way it's created to be used. Okay, over your way, what would be the most active sort of location that you've been in so far?
It's a tough question to answer. The most active place I've been to, I have not investigated because it happened prior to me investigating. So I can name a few recent memory that had a lot of stuff going on. The Archive of the Afterlife is one. The Madison Seminary, which is a seminary and a psych ward and asylum. It's been all kinds of different things. It was a home for widows in the Civil War. That place is up near Lake Erie and the Cleveland area. That place is very active. The places like Waverly Hills and Ohio State Reformatory, your big places, your huge, massive places are actually not great places to go to because they're so massive. It's kind of like if you need to find a needle in a 800,000 square foot haystack, you wouldn't want to be in that scenario. So you want to try to find locations that are small that you can cover for the time and money that you put into it to actually have a chance of finding something. So the ones we went to aren't so huge. They're generally around 12,000 square feet all the way down to 1,200 square feet. And there's a place called Willow's Weep. It's a haunted house, very small house in Cayuga, Indiana. There is a Randolph County Infirmary that you've seen on television in the States. That is a asylum and an infirmary in Winchester, Indiana. That place is highly active, and that was featured on season 5, I think, of her channel. I don't feel comfortable like putting one up on top because I feel like if you go back to that location, you may not get the same results, and that's the problem.
Well, that's right.
It's really hard to gauge.
Yeah. And you spend the night, nothing happens, and it's just you have to spend a lot of time going back and repeating things. Yeah.
Right. You're sitting next to your buddy. Have you ever been fishing and your buddy's catching all the fish and you can't even get a bite?
True. Yep.
The paranormal's like that, man. You can go to a location and not get anything, and another team can get in there and they caught all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. Have there been any cases where you've come to any conclusions about what that actually was? Was it some sort of residual entity? Was it some sort of intelligent entity? Was it some sort of interdimensional? Is there any sort of case that you've done where you've come out thinking, yeah, that was residual, for example?
Well, no one knows what a ghost is,
No, I don't.
In my opinion. There was a case in 2014 that was not public, but I will talk about it because it was very profound, and it was the only case that I knew, I could say for 100% that I knew what type of phenomena I was dealing with. A former member had a cousin that just went through a death of his daughter. She was 15 years old, and she died 3 days after Christmas in 2013. And this guy is not a paranormal guy, doesn't believe in ghosts or anything, okay? But his wife, highly religious, very Catholic. After their daughter died, they started experiencing some strange things that you would associate with a haunting. Cold spots, footsteps, voices. The mother would have a dream of her daughter holding her hand, wake up from the dream and still be holding her daughter's hand, and then vanish right in front of her eyes. Her father would report, something touching his hand, all the cold spots, the footsteps, the voices. There was a family member that had been touched on a couch in the basement. It freaked him out so bad he didn't return. So obviously he was concerned and wanted to see if it was his daughter, because who wouldn't, right? So we went in and we set up all of our equipment, recorded EMF spikes, temperature, spikes, 20 degrees hot, 20 degrees cold. It was just insane. 8 hours of, we put a recorder right where she died. You got recordings of something that sounded like a person suffocating, a woman's voice. So what happened that was very, very, very profound to me was we were using a hacked radio to generate white noise, because that's usually how we use spirit boxes. We just use it for a medium of noise. So we have it sitting there, it's sounding god-awful, and he gives me this 2-page list of questions that he can't bring himself to ask his daughter. So if he asked us if there's any way we can communicate with her, these are the questions, and they're typical ones like, how are you? Are you feeling any pain? Aunt Susie says hi, that kind of stuff. So at the end, very end of the list, it says, I love you. And we're not getting any response in real time. So at the end of the session, I say, okay, if you can hear us and we're here, I want you to tell your father that you love him so he knows that you're here. Didn't get anything. So we hit stop. We're recording on multiple devices because we do that all the time, the cross-check between them. So when we play back the recorder that was laying next to the radio, no answers all the way through except for the end when I asked her to say, I love you, tell your dad I love you. You get this craziest I love you in the craziest, creepiest white static voice you can possibly. It's totally clear and creepy. So and I have this on my YouTube channel. You're watching the camera footage and nothing comes across the radio, but when you play it back on the recorder, that's where it comes through. So it was my first validated voice phenomena that you could prove, because it's physically impossible for it to show up on just that recorder and not all the other recording devices because of the decibel level and the frequency that it was at. So we're playing it back to the father. And he says, I hear it, but it doesn't sound like her. So we're explaining maybe it's because she don't have a voice box anymore. She's using the white noise to modulate it, much like we would modulate air molecules, impression waves, And like the 5th time he's hearing this, he jumps out of his chair, turns around, and falls on the ground, shaking white as a ghost. And we're like, what's going on? And he's like, well, I felt something rush me behind me in her bedroom's back there. So when he looked, he said this energy rushed him. Something spoke in his ear and it freaked him out so bad he didn't know what to do. So we grab our gear, we go back in our bedroom, nothing happens. But when we play back the recording of that particular incident, we hear a woman say his name, not daddy or anything, but his name, first name, clear as a bell. And that freaked him out. So the conclusion of this is, not only was I able to have physical evidence that something either posing as his daughter or his daughter speaking beyond the grave. We can't prove this. We the only thing we can prove is something clear as day said I love you when we asked her to, or it to, and there's no explanation why it only showed up on the one recorder and not the 3 other devices we were using. So his marriage was rocky. This can cause strain on the marriage when you lose a child, when one wants to move on and the other one doesn't. Okay. So we were actually there investigating while the mom was at work. She didn't know we were there because she wouldn't want us to be there. So I said, hey, look, this your child is probably lingering around because you guys are fighting over this, or you guys are separating over this. You probably should stay together and just tough it out. because I don't think she will go to the place where you go until she is sure that you guys are okay. And he was reluctant, but he did, and the phenomena stopped. So that's the case. I feel it's probably one of those once in a lifetime cases where you know what you saw, what happened, and you can probably just, put a check mark, the end, at the end of that.
No doubts. Yeah, that's right. That's brilliant. That's awesome. Love to hear that. It's great. I have to go check it out. And that's on your website, is it?
It's on my YouTube channel. I don't think you can access. It's an old video. I can send you the link to it.
Yes, please. Yeah, I'd like to hear it.
It's called E.V.P. in the Field. There's one at the beginning. I give two examples. There's one at the beginning that's not that great. Excuse me. But the second one is the recording I'm talking about, and it shows the cross check between the camera and the recorder.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. Really cool. In history, has there been a case in history that has intrigued you more than any other case that you've wanted to follow up yourself, perhaps?
Yeah. Of course, I'm sure you've heard of Gettysburg.
Yes.
Gettysburg, Pennsylvania is probably the most historical case that a paranormal researcher would be interested in, because we associate death, sudden death, untimely deaths, deaths in battle with hauntings. Gettysburg is probably one of the most haunted locations you can go to in the U.S. So historically, 60,000 people died within 3 days in that location at Devil's Den and various other spots in Gettysburg. So historically, when you do the research, you go there, you experience it. You go to the Gettysburg National Cemetery and you see how they have all the monuments and the gravestones laid out. If you're an American, it's probably the most significant historical place that you research and investigate and you go to. We go every year to the Paracon that they have there. I don't think anything comes close to that. Of course, there's a lot of battlefields, a lot of cool history, everywhere in the world, but I think that one is the top one that I can think of.
One last question. What are your opinions on spirit attachments? Do you believe a spirit can attach itself to an object or a person, maybe follow you home from an investigation?
That's a good question. A lot of people believe that they can get attachments, but I'll tell you what I believe, what ghosts are, what hauntings are. I think that there is something to do with someone's conscious mind in a place, whether it be in a home, a building, a piece of land, that their psyche reacts to somehow. And much like the term psychoactive in pharmaceuticals and drugs and so forth, there's some type of psychoactive response someone has in these locations, whether you believe it in or not, with the phenomena, with something embedded, some type of energy that we don't understand yet. So the people who go into these locations and can't quite shake that psychoactive response to that location or to that building seems to stick with them. It doesn't metabolize, if you will. It goes with them wherever they go. They can't shake it out of their head, because I believe that the manifestations and the things that we experience, we are the main ingredient in the manifestation and the emergent properties of the phenomena. And it's so complex and so mysterious, we have yet to scratch the surface of explaining or understanding it. But I feel, based on my research and just based on my intuition, I feel like attachments come from our psychological connections with something in the environment. I don't know if we're psychically connecting with residual energies, with other psychokinetic energies that people lay in the environment. There's theories that poltergeist activities can stem from living agents, like a 13-year-old going through puberty, for example. I believe if humans can be agents of that type of phenomena, so can the dead, because that's all that's left over is that psychic kinetic energy that is disembodied from, the death process. So I think once that is all that's left, it doesn't have a body to act those out, but there's still people that can connect with those energies, whether you believe in it or not. But I feel like there's some people who have abilities, whether they know it or not, that can connect with these things. And the ones that suffer from the attachments are the ones that don't quite understand what's going on, if that makes sense.
Yes, true.
It can follow you around. It can linger on. It can seem like it's stuck to you. Because I tell people it doesn't matter. Like, hauntings and ghosts isn't a physical thing per se. It's non-local. Remote viewing, psychic readings, you can do it over the phone, you can do it over Skype or whatever. So you can connect with hauntings or ghostly activity wherever you're at, from anywhere.
Good answer. Cool. All right, Justin, I'll let you go now. That's really awesome. I'm going to put a few links up on my page, directing people to your pages and all. So, hey, thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate it, and good talking to you. And we should definitely stay in touch, okay?
No problem.
No worries. Good to hear from you, man. Catch you later, eh?
All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.